So it looks like it's recording now. Hello, my name is dsteplight. I am professionally I contract for Citibank, Drupal developer on their open banking team. I've been contracting for them for about a little over a year now, year and a half. Started Drupal by accident, and I think Drupal 7 just came out, so it might have been like 2011. The first site I was working on was A&E network site. Had to change too much then. Responsive web design was just new at the time, and I started that job because they were looking for a front-end developer. I thought I knew front-end stuff. Can't be that hard in Drupal. So I learned Drupal 7 within 3 months, and reading Drupal 7 Pro development and just making a whole bunch of mistakes and having someone else who was an expert who worked remotely. And that was the beginning. It wasn't a smooth transition at all. That was the beginning of my Drupal experience. But yeah, I got to work on a lot of cool sites using Drupal and not using Drupal. But today, this talk is going to be about Docker. Has anyone in the room not used Docker before? Couple in the back, cool. So this isn't a super advanced talk. It's hopefully the end game is to get people familiar with some core Docker concepts. If there's any fear or hesitation to use Docker, hopefully you'll walk away with that fear and hesitation removed. So yeah, there's a couple solutions out there. There's Puppet, there's Chef, there's Vagrant, VirtualBox might have been one of the first ones I use, and all of this is about having a local host that can kind of like simulate and emulate a different type of environment, one that's a lot closer to your production environment, and ideally to have some setting that you could install on any computer, or you could share with your team, so everyone's kind of using the same solution. Obviously that depends on the culture of your team and your workplace. So right now what you're seeing is kind of the end result. I do a lot of STEM stuff and talk to kids, and it's easier for me to show kids the end result and work backwards. It's a little bit more motivating versus seeing the beginning and hope that everything works out. So this is kind of what you're going to get with a very new Drupal instance. Don't have Docker. You're going to want to sorry on the install Docker format page. So it's I think for older, was it before Windows 10? Docker is no longer supported.
Yep.
So it benefits you to just have a Mac. But yeah, so you go to the website, find your respective operating system. You're going to install it. You're going to get, I think there's some pictures at the bottom. What it looks like. Yeah, you're going to get this cool guy here.
Can I ask you to maximize your screen?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. There you go. Thank you.
It's better for me also. Yeah. This is going to end up being in your toolbar at the top. So you can always tell when Docker is running or not running on your computer. You'll also be able to log in. If you click on this pops up, log in through here to start running some of the commands. And on the command line, I believe you could do Docker space login. and it'll give you a prompt for your username and password if you don't want to log in through here. So this is just kind of like the overhead of getting it started so you can start playing around with stuff. Cool. Now, Docker, when you start talking about Docker and things like this, you're going to start hearing like the terms like images and containers. You see the whole ship and well thing, and you know there's a big analogy with like containers, like you're literally like shipping containers, like a boatload of stuff being transported. But when you have a container, you know you have items or stock that's inventory that's isolated, encapsulated inside of that container. So that's how you kind of think of your application. Your application is a container that has different things specific for that container inside of it. So you might have a Drupal container, right? That has maybe Composer inside of it. Maybe I like to use ACK. Some more veteran DevOps people might use grep. But you might set up a Drupal container that has, you know, that stuff associated with it, or Drush associated with it. You might have another container that is just for your database. I like to keep those things separated. And those containers can talk to one another, even share data between one another. We won't go that far down the rabbit hole with this talk as far as sharing data between containers, but I will show how to share data between your host environment, your computer, and your container. So what's another way to think of it, right? So when you have an image, you're gonna pull down like either some pre-packaged server setup. So there's like a Drupal image on Docker. Should have, here we go. Yeah, so this is the official Drupal image on Docker. And there's tags associated with it. So if you want it specifically Drupal 7.59, which is 7 Apache, there's different type of tags. The more you go to the right, the more it's going to be like the latest. So the ones on the right are more likely to change versus the ones on the left. I personally, I would just do this. I would just grab 7.59 or 8.53 or 8.5. I usually just go for the numeric ones. But, you know, it's up to you which ones. There's different pros and cons, but that's my particular pattern. So if I wanted to pull down a Drupal image, meaning just a server setup that already has Drupal installed in the right folders, this is a command I would write. Now, if I just run this command, the tag it's going to use is basically, by default, the latest one. So as soon as they update this to maybe, I don't know, what, 8.5.2, that's what the latest will be. But if you want to specifically target this one, then it's Docker pull Drupal 8.5 colon, then whatever tag you want. So we could kind of do a quick example of that. See what that looks like. It's not. You got stuck in between the.
We need to exit full screen.
Yeah. There we go. So let's do 8.5. I can remember that. Let's see what this looks like. Docker pull Drupal 8.5. So this is what it looks like when it's like grabbing and creating the image. It's not going to take too long. I already have another image, obviously, since we saw the end result, but it's not 8.5. There we go. Boom. Okay, so now we have the image. And jumping a little ahead, but let's say we want to see like where are all the images you have, right? Docker.
Yes.
There we go. So yeah, there's one that I created called Drupaldelphia 2018. One with a typo test. There's kind of some metadata about your images. You know, they kind of have like their IDs. You can see how long ago they were created, their size, what repository they're associated with. Typical stuff. So, and their tag number. So this is the one right here that I just pulled, and yeah, it says this one was created 6 hours ago. So sometimes it can be good information to know. So an image is just kind of like a recipe to create, in this case, like a server, right? So then you're gonna have like containers, and you can make multiple containers off of the same image. So why would you want to do something like that? Let's say I wanted to have a website that was for like dev, staging, and production, and they're all based off the same image. I have one container, and we haven't seen containers yet. I have one container based off of that image for my local environment, one to kind of represent what the dev environment is supposed to look like, staging environment, and then the production environment. So if images are like the recipes for like a cake or whatever, the containers are like the different cakes you made from the recipe. So let's get out of. Does that make sense so far? These are cool. Okay. So you could search for a lot of different things off of the site, help.docker.com. If you want to see the WordPress one, just to see like what the difference would be. So we see official. These are WordPress images that other people have created with different tags, but this is the official WordPress one. Same principle, same tags. You see, you pull it down the same way. We're not going to do that today, but you're going to want to read over this information when you're pulling down stuff. There's some helpful tips, tricks. This command we'll go over, like what does this mean? It shows you how to kind of link it to a MySQL instance, and I don't use the link too much. I like the having a Docker compose file. We might have time to go over that, and I'll go over like what's a volume, right? So volumes allow you to share folders, to sync folders from your computer to inside your container. So we'll see like a kind of lightweight example a little bit later, but when would you want to do something like that, right? Your modules, your sites, well, for Drupal 7, your sites, all modules, custom folder, right? So for any custom modules you have, you may be writing that outside of your container, but you want them to sync inside your container and be reflected on your site. If you don't do it that way, you have to do a command like docker cp copy and manually copy folders over into your container. But that's super tedious. You want to not have to think about it. And this goes into a Docker compose file, which is just a YAML file. Once you once you start doing like Docker run and like potentially linking your Drupal instance to your MySQL instance, so they start at the same time and end at the same time. If you had like a Redis instance or 6 other containers, this syntax could get like super long, complicated, and heavy. So a Docker compose file makes things easier by using YAML to kind of break out this in a more readable way. So for here, this would kind of be the name of your Drupal instance. This is the image that you're using. You see we have the name and the tag, the port. I'll go on the ports in a second. The volumes I just mentioned. This would be the database container. This would be, so all these are like services. If you've done anything with Symfony, it's kind of similar as far as the breakdown. Cool. So let's go into a little bit more of the cooler stuff. But this is all where you're going to start. Get out of this. Okay. It's easier to read. Okay. So, already have a folder. We're gonna create. There's a file called a Docker file, right? You use this to create an image. Anybody use film up in here? Film? All right, let's see that. Okay. I'll get rid of this stuff, actually. Okay. So, in 6 lines, we're going to create a very simple Docker image. So this line from basically is going to say, go to the website we just went to, go to the Drupal repo, and get the tag 7.59-Apache. You can use whatever tag you want. And it's going to pull down that image. Now, when it pulls down that image, the second thing, line 2, is going to execute the copy command. The copy command says everything that's in sites folder, move it to the image folder of var www HTML sites. You could move whatever folder to wherever container folder that you want. Doesn't have to
Is
be
the
this.
sites folder local to your drive, or is that in the image?
This right here,
Yeah.
on the right.
On the left. The sites
Yeah, it's local.
That's local
I'm
on
gonna-
your laptop. Okay.
Right. I'm going to show that in a sec. And line 3, expose 80. 80 is the port. So what you're going to see in a couple of minutes is when I do the Docker run command, I'm going to say like, Docker run, some attributes, -p, 8. I think I'm using like 999, I think it's some port number. So basically your browser, anything that uses that port is going to be forwarded to port 80 of your container. So this command just changes recursively changes the permission of user local bin, which is inside of my container. And I think by default this might be like 644. So that's why I'm running it, and I'm doing that because I mentioned I like ACK. So from within my container, I want to use the ACK command. So to be able to download it in that folder, I need to give it the right permissions, and this is just something custom that I like. And then if you go to the ACK website, it tells you the command to download it, and just sit right here. Curl, this could be whatever you want. So let's see, it's already built, but let's see this in action. Actually, before I do that, ls. So to answer your question in the back, there's my sites folder. So it's local. So I just have some like dummy files in there, and you're going to see stuff being added there from my container and removed from my container if everything goes right. And it should sync up here, or I should be outside my container, add something here, and it should sync within my container. So just think about it like if you downloaded some theme or whatever, and you in your composer file you say, hey, anything that's in the theme should match my Drupal theme. If you have because you have a volume, you'll see how volumes work. It will sync up. The copy command, once you run it, it's just going to do it once. So if you make a change, it won't sync up the way you think it will. So that's a little misleading. But once we do the run command and set our volumes, it will sync up. All right, so once you have a Docker file, see a Docker file right here. To run your Docker file, you need to do Docker build. Have people use like Vagrant before? All right, so it's kind of like a Vagrant when you're like rebuilding an image, and you can change like one extra line, just do Vagrant up, and it kind of rebuilds it. This is pretty much the Docker version of that. So I'm gonna do Docker build -t. I'm gonna give it whatever name I want to give it. So I just name my image Drupaldelphia 2018, and you see it's the period. That's pretty much telling Docker that the Docker file is on that level. You could give it a path to a different Docker file if it was someplace else. So we're just going to execute it. Boom. You start seeing some metadata. You see your steps of everything you're doing. Once you start seeing like a tag number, a tag string, well, I'm calling it a tag string, that's good. If something went wrong, you would see, it will basically say it failed, and you'll know at which step. And successfully tagged, boom. And by default, it gave it the latest, just like you saw on the Drupal site. Latest being the tag. Cool. All right, so now we already saw it, but if we do Docker image ls, we'll see Drupaldelphia 2018. If I, just for the sake of demonstration, let's say I want to make a different image that was exactly the same, just a different name. Let's run this. Right? 2019. There you go. Okay? So that's really all it takes to build an image. You could put whatever commands you want. It gets a lot more complicated than that, but in the simplest form, like, there you go. So all those images you see on the Docker website, someone else followed the same steps. They just have way more bash stuff in there. Cool. So we have our image, but we have no containers running. Remember, I said like the image, like the recipe, the container. It's like the cakes that you built from the recipe. So now, we're going to run this command. There's a lot going on here, right? There's a lot going on here. So let's break this down. Let's run it first. Or let's get an error. Let's see, the container. Oh, I think I already ran it. I need to stop something. Which is a perfect time to learn about Drupal PS. I'm sorry, Docker PS. So, I actually already have it running. It was running earlier from today. So, these are all the containers that I currently have at the moment. If anyone did any DevOps, system admin stuff, you're familiar with the PS command, it kind of works in the same way. Show you the running like process, I guess process status. And so container ID, the image that that container came from, Docker command, when it was created, the current status, the port. If you can see, Ruby kind of does the same thing, like 0000 is just like whatever URL. So technically, I don't need to put localhost. I could put whatever there. As long as my browser sees 8999, it's going to forward that to port 80 on the container that I named Drupaldev. All right, just so I can run the command, I'm going to kill this one. So any container that you have running, you can do docker stop, grab the name, boom, it's no longer running. If I want to remove it, it might be the container ID. And to see that it's removed, yeah, that's not it. Let me. I was trying. All right. So we're going to do this run command again. Cool. So the run command executed. So let's break this down a little bit. So I'm saying Docker run. I'm giving a port -p 8999. So that's what I'm going to end up putting in my browser. It's going to it's going to forward to port 80. So that's what my container, is open to. -v. So this is our first volume. So this volume is saying, and you have to give it an absolute path. I wish it could be relative. It has to be absolute. So in the user dsteplight Drupaldelphia sites folder, right? Everything that's inside of there, which is what you saw earlier, forward that to my containers var www xml sites all folder, which for demo purposes makes sense. But in your own project, obviously, you would change that path. So I have another volume. I'm saying everything in the Drupaldelphia modules folder goes to var www xml dummy. And then I'm giving my container a name. The volumes have hyphen. The name has 2 hyphens. So hyphen name. -d is just the daemon. It allows you to run in the background. And yeah, you get that like long string and everything's okay. So if I ran this command again, I would get that same error I saw 5 minutes ago saying the container is already in use. So now, you see a couple minutes ago I did docker ps. There's only 2 things running. I have this one thing running on port 8081. Let's check again. Now there's 3 things running. We're back to where we were at before. You can see what port is going on. So, now let's go to this website, localhost 8999. Which is fine. This is actually pretty good for this demo. It doesn't know, because I had it and I just redid it, it doesn't know how to connect to the MySQL thing that's running, which is great because it gives me an opportunity to show you. So, what did we do so far? We pulled out our image, we gave it a name, we ran it, that started that process, and we said, hey, share these 2 folders with folders on our host computer and sync them with the folders on inside the container. We're actually going to go inside the container in a sec. So we all been here, right? So knowing we gotta do the steps. Go here, boom. So what's our database name, right? What's our host name? What's our password? We're not going to do localhost because localhost for me, our database is inside of our container. We actually have a separate container that's just for MySQL. In that case, you have to do the same type of steps. So this is the MySQL thing, the MySQL repository page on the Docker website. You would do Docker pull, find the tag you want. I think I'm using 5.6 already. Pull that down. We're not going to do that right now. Once you have it, just how I did Docker run for Drupal, you do the same similar thing and do Docker run, give it a name. I like to name it whatever tag I have, so I name mine MySQL 5.6. I didn't link it, but that's okay. Yeah, and then you'll pull it down, and then you would go back. Let's go back here. So like I have it right here. MySQL, you would go back and have to do Docker start. Same concept, but already have it started. Cool, so right now we have one container, well we have 3 containers, but as far as the demo, we have one container for Drupal, one container for MySQL. We want them to know about one another. Okay, so let's start here. Database name, how do I get my database name? Well, I'm gonna have to create a database name. So I'm gonna have to go into my MySQL container, go inside the database. For command line folks, this would be a good opportunity to see how to do it. So we're gonna do Docker. In my head, I always think execute it. So it's execute -it. If I want to go into my Drupal container, it's the same principle. But right now we're going to go into my MySQL one. MySQL. We're going to do bash. Now we are literally not on my command line anymore, and we're actually inside the MySQL server. See, for root, who am I? We're inside of the server. So, command line, MySQL stuff. Actually missed a step as far as when you do the run command, you can pass like a -e parameter. This sets your default password. Your default username is going to be root. So, we're going to do -root. Pretend like we're on a real production environment and not put the password. H. Now we can do localhost because we're actually on the MySQL instance. My password was test. It's local instance. Boom, MySQL command line. I think I have some, matter of fact, let's create a new database. Create database. Let's see. Drupaldelphia. We got our database. If I use it, there should be nothing there. Right? Cool. So, all we did so far was just create a database. But now, at least we know the database name. So we're going to put that here. We know the username is root. I already set my password. Now, this is what's not super obvious. You're not going to put localhost. So for any container that's running, there's another Docker command called docker inspect, and you get a lot of metadata about that container. Whole bunch of stuff. The only thing we actually care about is this right here, the IP address. That's what we want to put instead of localhost. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but let's see. There we go. So it's going through. Boom, okay? So my email, if anyone wants to email me, I'm gonna do admin, safest. No one's gonna hack that. Actually, they had caps lock on. Don't care about any of these right now. Save, continue. Now we can view our site. Boom. So, literally right now, you know, just in front of you, download it, pull down a Drupal image from the site, from a Docker file, right? I could do it from the command line, but I put in a Docker file from the command line. I mean, sorry, like the first line of the Docker file from Drupal, it was like 7.59 Apache. Let's just go back to it. Copy what's in here. We're going to see this in sec. I expose support. I'm running. I downloaded this tool called ACK, and I put it into. I changed the folder that I downloaded in so I could run it on the command line without permission issues. And we're going to see that in a second. All right, so now I'm going to go into my Drupal container. I'm going to execute it. The name of the container. Bash. So now you see I'm in var www.html. If I just do ls. Typical Drupal 7 stuff. Now where do I want to look? Let's see. Get it out of my MySQL container. Now we said, what did we say? Oh no, with the run command, sorry. The run command, we have our volumes being shared. Just to paste the run command again, just so you see it. That run command, we should say everything that's in sites folder should be in sites all, right? So let's see this worked. Let's get rid of this real quick.
Does Control U bring you all the way back to the beginning?
That's it.
Yes, it does.
Something new. Here we go. Okay.
Muscle memory will work then.
All right, so sites all. What do we see in here? You see two files. So you see erase A. Now this is my container at the bottom. That's my host at the top. I'm using iTerm too. I've probably color coded, but nothing broke so far. So let's just see if it works. So I'm going to remove erase. And it did not erase. And of course something would not go right. Yep, and it's not syncing. That would be the one thing I knew was gonna go right. So, given actually their recording of this would be syncing right now, like it was earlier. But Let's see what else is there. Yeah, that was kind of the closer. That was definitely the closer. Well, for right now, is there any questions? Does the concept of an image and container does it make more sense, or is it clear? Is Drupal less scary, at least by now?
So when you built those images, you're just kind of defining what files were in the images. Can you also say, and limit it to 2 gigs of RAM?
I believe that might be possible. I know you can play around with like the proxies, like with my job or whatever. Being that I'm at a bank, we have to go through our job's firewall. Mm-hmm. But there are different things you can do with the operating system with Docker. But yeah, I believe the file size is one of them.
No, I meant the RAM.
Yeah. Sorry, the RAM. Any other questions? So what I'm showing right now is kind of a custom solution. We kind of did it more the longer way, but if you had docker-compose.yaml file, as we saw on the Docker site, you could just do like docker compose like up -d, I believe, and it'll find your composer file, and basically that whole Docker run thing, it will just run for you. So it's a little easier to do than having to type it out all the time. I kind of want the walkthrough typing it out just to show you kind of like the addition before the multiplication. One more question. And anything else? Besides for Docker Composer, for Drupal, there's Docker for Drupal, which has a composer file. It's there's a lot that goes into it. It might give you more than you need, or give you more options between switching between 7 and 8 and different database things, but all my databases are MySQL or Maria databases, so I don't need the overhead of different options. It's definitely good to use it, to learn it, but if you need something more lightweight, you can kind of go this route. And I'm sure when I look back at this presentation, it's all something I missed as far as getting this syncing to work. Any else? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 12:34. 7 minutes. Be back to time. Thank you.
Nice one.